We are cracking some coldies on a Monday night. Welcome to another post-game edition of Spits and Suds, your favorite Dallas Stars / NHL / heck, we talk hockey podcast. I'm Gavin Spittle of 105.3 The Fan. Wyatt Johnston, Matt Duchene scored twice in a span of 58 seconds. And that's all the Stars needed, even though they did get an empty netter from Mason Marchment. And that's because Jake Oettinger, with his second shutout of the season, looks really good in net tonight, and we are so happy to welcome one of my top 3 or 4 co-hosts. I was kind of trying to count how many regulars I have on the program, so I don't want to offend Mr. Tiffin, Mr. Shapiro, Miss Asimakopoulos, or others, Mr. Haika. I don't know. I mean, any guest that has come on, but he's still really, really good. I have nicknamed him. His hockey name is Casty. It's David Castillo.
Oh my God.
Of D Magazine, and also the Substack Stars Stack, where it gives a lot of analytical information. And we're going to talk a little prospects as well in this, as the Stars signed 2 college players, and David will give us the lowdown on both. That happened. Releases just went out this afternoon and this evening. David, how are you, my friend?
I don't think I will, actually. I mean, if you're going to call me Casty and we're going to do this like hockey nickname conventions, I just want to know, like, how many, we're like one less syllable away from just like saying goo goo gaga. And that's something that I'm not sure I can be on board with. So I'm not.
That's fine. I don't have to do it. But the question is, I'm calling Robert Tiffin Tiffs tomorrow. So
Robert's like too nice of a guy though to push back on tips.
All right, if you don't like the nickname, we don't have to go with it. I'm just thinking Ritz Covian, my buddy, my guy, my Texas Star. He thinks Spitzy's a good name to go with.
Well, the important thing, Gavin, is that I want you to have fun. When you have fun, like, the show is fantastic, and so I don't want to. I don't listen. Okay. So the thing is, I'm actually here to be extremely negative.
What about tonight?
About tonight's game, and I want to be upfront about that because I don't want to be a negative person. I don't want to be sort of a Chicken Little. But maybe we can get to that as we go along. So.
I have to admit, I'm the exact opposite of tonight. I wanted to be Mr. Positive because this is the first game in a few games where I actually enjoyed. I thought they cut down on their turnovers. I thought Oettinger's positioning and the way he played all night was terrific. Yes, I want more offense. I thought the defense played better. But shoot, man, this is what I love about this podcast. We can go back and forth. What did you see?
So. And by the way, I don't want to make it sound like, there were obviously some great performances from some star players. And again, for me, everything is kind of framed in the context. Well, Dallas Stars, Cup contender. Do they look like it? Right. So the pattern so far, and I'll try to be kind of, fairly level-headed in my negativity, if that makes any sense. But what has been the pattern with Dallas's losses and their wins lately? Who are they losing to? Who are they beating?
Yeah. Good question. I feel as though they're playing down to their competition. I think who are they losing to?
Edmonton, to Winnipeg.
Yeah. I was going to say teams that are aggressive as far as coming out of their zone and speed.
So that's my reason for quote unquote, being a little bit more critical than I think most people are, which is that Dallas has been losing to the good teams and they've been beating the bad teams. Tonight, despite Minnesota's place in the stand, Minnesota was missing their top forward, their second line center, and one of their top pairing defenders in Brodin. And so I'm sorry if I don't consider tonight's performance against an otherwise decent team that's kind of one note, which is, a strong blue line and goaltending, and sort of, again, with that, what was it? They finally got a shot, 12 minutes into the first period. And so
Fair point.
so that to me is my reason for kind of not really being,
Yeah.
super pumped about tonight's win, because I just feel like, listen, Minnesota should not have been a competitive game at all. And you could say, well, it kind of really wasn't, it was 2-0, but does this game look lopsided if Jake Ottinger isn't forced to play a pretty good game? That's my thing. Like, Ottinger should not be having to play a great game against a Minnesota team that's missing like 3 key players.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely missing, really, really good players. Yeah, I mean, no Kaprizov is an issue. Obviously, that leads the way. I will say this. I mean, and I think you've been on this train as well. Like, people have to realize how good Matt Boldy is. I mean, that guy's just a good player. That positioning for that backhand, which was a terrific high quality scoring chance that Ottinger made the save, that was a really nice play. I'd really never seen that as far as a slap backhand like that.
Yeah, no, he's one of, I mean, he's pretty much their only. By the way, isn't like Kaprizov still leading Minnesota in points despite only playing 50 games?
Good talk, and Gavin Spittle will look it up.
But anyway, like you said, yeah, absolutely. Like Boldy is another one of those. Like, it's funny because we're talking about 2 teams. In this case, right? Who is Minnesota's best player tonight? Absolutely, like Matt Boldy. Who has been Dallas's best player in this recent stretch? Thomas Harley. These are like both players that I cannot for the life of me understand how they fell. Like, Boldy's talent was well known. It's not like he's a small guy, right? So you don't have the Cole Caulfield excuse. And Harley, you look at the defensemen that were picked ahead of Harley, like Cam York, like Soderstrom, and you're like, how, like, right? I mean, like, Harley's a big guy. So how did a big guy with skill fall below small guys with skill? And I can't for the life of me figure that out, other than that, like, scouts maybe didn't like how he interviewed.
Yeah. I mean, came from a nice Boston College program. Matt Boldy, 60 points, leads the way.
Okay.
Kaprizov's actually third. The second, which I thought he had a pretty good game as well, is Marco Rossi's turned into a real nice player. 54 points this year, 22 goals, 32 assists. He's turned into a real nice find for the Wild, and just really seems like it. Well, I mean, even the stats say that every year he's getting better.
Yeah, no, Rossi is another guy. Rossi is one of the reasons why I predicted that Minnesota would be like a good team this year, because they had been solid defensively, even last year when they missed the playoffs, and they've been a really solid drafted team. A lot of people don't really talk. Well, we're on a Stars podcast, so of course, like, we're not generally don't have positive things to say about Minnesota as a franchise. Me, like, that's not how I process the game, so I don't really hate Minnesota, in addition to the fact that Dallas is just beat up on them like a lot. So
yeah,
it's just but yeah, no, a fantastic pick. And again, like, they also one of their Hobie Baker finalists, Zeev Beam, right, who was drafted this year. Like, that, Minnesota may not seem like a problem now, even though you would say with the injuries they're probably a quality team, but they're going to be a problem in a couple of years.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, David, like, obviously we do a deep dive a lot on Dallas Stars hockey, but I do like to give the perspective of the other team to differentiate this podcast from others. And I do like to highlight the other team and some players, because for a couple of reasons. One, I want people to learn about other players in the NHL. And two, as I continue to say, yes, the Wild were down a couple of players, but you might have seen Matt Boldy play tonight at the AAC and said, wow, that's a really, really good player. I've been saying that for years about Sebastian Aho, years about go see the LA Kings, because you're seeing a first ballot Hall of Famer in Anse Kopitar. And people could say, like, what are you talking about, Gavin? People talk about Kopitar, not compared to others. But I think he's one of the best two-way players of all time. So that's why I like to talk about that stuff. But obviously we're Dallas Stars focused. So let's start with this, David, in that the narrative over the past week, positive or negative, and I think there are both here, was that let's see more of Casey DeSmith because of how Oettinger has played. Now, has Oettinger played his best hockey as of late? Personally, I didn't think so. But had he played bad? No, I also don't think so. I think the defense in front of him opened up a lot of opportunities. But tonight, he was great. I think tonight silenced a lot. I think Casey DeSmith will certainly get some games in the next week. They have back to back and they're on the road. So, busy. They have 2 games in Seattle, Saturday and Monday. So you're probably going to see DeSmith on one of those days. And you also have in just a couple of days, Edmonton followed by Calgary. So you're going to see DeSmith there as well. So DeSmith's going to get his reps, but I personally feel as though this team goes as far as Jake Oettinger takes them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. A lot of there's like a certain element that goes without saying, right? I mean, it's like, well, how does it look in terms of optics if Dallas scratches their $8 million, starting goaltender, right? I mean, how does the team respond to that? So there are a lot of like factors into that, which is, hey, you paid this guy to be your number one starter. He needs to start, the most critical games. A lot of that, of course, for fans, there are two things, and I'm actually of two minds about this, right? Which is a lot of this is, of course, expectation bias. DeSmith is a starter, DeSmith is the backup, is paid like a backup. So whenever he's good, he's going to seem even better. Whereas Oettinger, the expectation is much higher. So if he's just good, it's going to seem bad. If he's bad, it's going to be just nuclear. However, me being the sort of chart hugging, pocket protected nerd that I am, if you look at the underlying numbers, the fancier stats when it comes to goaltenders and trying to measure and trying to distinguish, the saves they're making versus the shot quality they're facing, DeSmith actually does rate better than Oettinger. And it's by a pretty significant margin. In this case, I'm looking at a number of different things. Goals saved above expected. In this case, there's something called I'm really ashamed that I'm going to say this out loud on a podcast. There is, something called Delta Fenwick expected save percentage on Evolving Hockey that tries to. So okay, all right. So okay, my bad. So this is like now you know how I feel whenever you call me Casty.
or when I bring up plus minus.
Yes. Okay, the point is, right, we're not going to go over that. The point is, though, that DeSmith is doing a really, really good job.
Yes.
And I think if you ended up in a scenario where, say, like, oh, it's the playoffs, and, again, like, obviously we don't want to, we don't like scenarios like this, but let's say, Colorado versus Dallas. Dallas is down by 3 in the first 3 games, and Oettinger hasn't looked good. Is DeSmith going to get the next start and probably even the one after that if he wins? Yeah, absolutely. So yes, Oettinger's a starter, but it should not go unnoticed just how good DeSmith is playing. And yeah, Oettinger was great tonight. My thing with Oettinger is that like he shouldn't have had to be great tonight. And again, that's ultimately my main criticism. And Dallas has been losing the possession battle over the last like stretch of 10 games. Thankfully tonight was an exception, but I mean, this should not. I mean, yes, my personal theory: without Heiskanen, everything is affected, not just the defense but the offense as well.
Yeah.
And again, only at even strength. Yes, the power play Thomas Harley has run with. However, Dallas has Mikko Rantanen now. Like this team should not be struggling with Calgary and Anaheim and Minnesota missing 3 key players. They just shouldn't.
So Mikko Rantanen does pick up an assist on the empty net Marchman goal. That's just 2 points in his last 6 games. I'm just trying to figure out what the lead time is before we can really. I personally am not concerned. I just think they're trying to find their way. What will he work with? I will tell you one guy I do want back, and I don't know if they can afford him, but I just feel as though Granlund does so many little things on the ice, creates turnovers. Obviously a good clubhouse guy as well. Love to see him back for the Stars. Third point that you can comment on is I don't want to see Blackwell out of the lineup anymore. I just think that he provides a lot of energy. And it's not like one of those guys that is excessive energy without results. I mean, I think that fourth line right now is playing really, really well.
So a couple things, right? Like going back to Rantanen. So just shameless plug, which of course maybe not so shameless because Gavin's always happy to plug the
Yep.
Substack.
Plug away.
So tomorrow morning, I'm doing kind of like a deep dive. Yes, some spreadsheets, but yes, also some some film room analysis on Mikko Rantanen and whether or not he's adjusting or simply getting unlucky. Because I think it's important to point out when you look at a lot of Rantanen's underlying numbers in Carolina, he was actually excellent. His line with Aho and Blake, they were just a possession monster. They just were not getting lucky. So adjustment or not, in terms of what he was doing on the ice, was actually really, really good. And so I'm kind of like, tomorrow's piece is all about whether or not something kind of similar is happening in Dallas, where, whether or not he's just getting unlucky or whether or not, he truly is adjusting. One thing I will say is kind of a spoiler is that Dallas does kind of have a problem trying to find a fit for him. And I think part of the issue is that, like, I don't think Rantanen and with Robertson and Hintz, I don't really think that's the line. I think there's not enough speed on that line. And not every top line has to be fast. But you'd be hard pressed to think of a line that doesn't have overall like a good amount of speed. And I think like Rantanen and Robertson, that's just too much. That's just too much plotting. I think they could still get there. I think they can still absolutely be difference makers, but I don't think that line has worked. And I think we can even say like Robertson and Hintz. I mean, how long has it taken them to try to find the ideal partner? They never did. And I would say they're still looking for it.
Right. I'm going to bring up something that people are going to hate me for, and I understand. So I'm just going to tread lightly when I say this, because I don't want to go against Stars fans. I'm a fan myself. I'm rooting them on. For perspective, if you're listening to the podcast, I was a season ticket holder for nearly 20 years. Don't have tickets anymore, honestly, because of this podcast. And I wanted to really dive in. And it's tough to do when you're at the arena. So I stay home, take notes, rewind, things like that. But my only thing is like the narrative that we have to stop is penalties are going to be called, and we have to stop the narrative that the opposition dives. And I say that because former Dallas Star Matt Zuccarello got a stick blade to the blade of the ice skate, went down, and people were saying once he felt that, he purposely went down. And I love the broadcast, but I mean, they even said on the broadcast, those are the kind of things that'll be reviewed. And I'm like, it was a trip, because the only reason I say that is because then when a Dallas Stars player is tripped and it went on the laces, it was clearly a trip. So I understand we're here and everything like that. I just hope people understand that it's like, if that player really did dive, then I feel I trust the officials enough for what they've seen that they'd call it. You don't have to comment on it, David. There were penalties in this game against the Stars that were warranted. I know the player gets mad and yells, but what player isn't upset as they go to the box? I've never seen a player say, "Yep, that was me." Absolutely.
You really worried me with that preamble. I thought you were going to have another Harvard joke up your sleeve or something. It's for me, like the thing I would say to kind of fans, especially when you sort of get that from the national broadcast, local, whatever, which is that, listen, man, when it comes to officiating, especially NHL officiating, which answers to nobody, do not assume a level of competence that they have not earned. So I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't really generally I don't complain about officiating, because the expectation is that it's going to be bad. It's maybe not bad,
Yeah.
but officiating is not something that the league is serious about trying to improve. And so what am I supposed to like what what is going to help that? And so maybe that's kind of like not necessarily to your point, because yeah, that was clearly a trip. Plus, like, on the opposite end, Marchment fell clearly trying to embellish on was in the third period.
Yeah.
He got knocked down.
Yeah.
Clearly tried to embellish. They could have easily called him on that, but they didn't. So yeah, it's the kind of classic thing, and I get it. I'm a Stars fan too, but listen, man, it's um,
Yeah.
we tend to be biased, and when that happens, we tend to notice things that go our way as opposed to the other way, and
Yeah.
just accept it. Hey, bias is a good thing. Just accept it.
You know what?
Don't
Fans are
question.
into it. I love it. I love it. I think fans are into it, and I love that aspect. I just want people to know. My opinion is that not every penalty is a bad penalty, but I mean, hey, if you're into the game and you think that way, that's cool. Robert Tiffin, who will join us tomorrow, caught up with Mikko Rantanen after the game and asked him about wearing the extra face protection after taking that puck to the cheek, which I think scared us all. He said, "Yeah, I saw Marchman wearing it, looked good, so I wanted to try it too." I think Mikko Rantanen has a really good personality. And Aaliyah Spits and Suds listeners retweets, "What a silly moose." And I thought that was very clever as well. So thank you so much for your support, Aaliyah. You want to take some questions, David?
Let's go.
Okay. All right. Parker Allen starts us off. The top six of Marchman, Hintz, Rantanen, Robertson, Duchesne, Granlund was really good. Both XG 78% when they went to it tonight. What does that mean, David? I'm sorry.
Oh, so XG is expected. I'm assuming like expected goals are basically just shot quality. It's really what the term means. I know it sounds kind of goofy, but
Okay, Parker,
expected
thank
goals, yeah, just refers to shot quality. So basically, they controlled 70% of the share of shot quality whenever Dallas controlled 70% of the shot quality whenever those lines were on the ice. Is what it's saying.
Someone listening is like, you shouldn't host the show if you don't know what XG 78% is. And I agree with you. All right. I agree with you. I'll be better. Thoughts on staying with it for a few games when Seguin is back? Is everything most likely going to go back to old times with Granlund down to the Wyatt Ben line? I personally believe when Seguin comes back, he'll be paired with Marchment and Duchesne.
I hope not. I really, maybe that's a hot take, but it's for me. For one, expecting Sagan to look like the Sagan that started the year is a tall task. And the other thing is that I don't, despite sort of getting on board tonight, I don't think Marchman has looked good at all, and I don't necessarily think he should be. I mean, certainly, I would like to see the line back because they were really good together, but they, I would personally like to see Marchment say like on the fourth line. I mean, because that sounds crazy, but think about what they're going to look like when Sagan returns, right? So you're assuming Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen, in this case, Marchment, Duchesne, Sagan, Ben, Johnston, Granlund. And I mean, you have like a stew of like Bork, Back, Blackwell, Dodonov, March. I mean, like, so I'm just saying, like, I don't think Marchment on the fourth line is crazy when you consider how stacked they're going to be with Marchment or with Sagan's return.
Yeah. Aaron Thackman was at the game tonight, and Aaron Thacker says, "Great job tonight by Otter. Looked a lot better, especially seeing the game tonight in person. Thought the defense was much more sound." I did too, David. I thought especially early, I thought the energy that they provided was really good. Let's focus on Liam Bichel. I think the fans love it because he's clearing everything in front of the net, getting under people's skin, so to speak, just the size and power that he brings. But I noticed early in the first period something that I absolutely loved. I felt as though the Stars were puck carrying rather than looking for the pass outlet. And I love that when Minnesota gave them space tonight and they took it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, like I'm gonna try not to be like this the entire night. Again, I just don't think Minnesota should be the team that's just kind of like forcing them to play their quote unquote A game. Like if this is a team that's forcing you to play your A game, maybe you don't have an A game. However, as far as Big Cell is concerned, I think so. He still has his rookie moments, and he had them this game as well. But I still think he's been fantastic. He had like a play the other night where 2 4-checkers were on him, still protected the puck and got it out of the zone. And that I think is the thing that he really excels at, which is being able to, despite his reputation, despite the fact that sometimes he's kind of like the sort of the sheriff in town on ice. He still plays such a quality, skilled game with the puck, and he's somebody that's just has really solid and confident control of it when he's breaking out of the zone. And I mean, I would argue he's their 4th best defenseman.
Yeah, I would say that as well. Christopher DeHardy says Otter needed this tonight so much. Big frosty for him tonight. Also, Mikko is now officially a Dallas Star since he took a puck in the face. Dare I say, catching Winnipeg seems like a real possibility now. Well, they're 6 points back. I'm going to be pessimistic there, Christopher. Is it possible? Absolutely. Winnipeg has showed me no sign of going on a big losing streak this year. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I mean, Winnipeg, to be fair, like you have like pretty significant injury with Velarde week to week. And they also have a pretty tough schedule. So I don't think it's crazy. The idea that Dallas could catch Winnipeg, especially with them having at least a game in hand or 2 games in hand, I think,
and a game against them.
And a game. Yeah. Which is not crazy. I think the issue is just that, again, for me, Dallas, in terms of performance, right? Like set aside outcomes. Like how many performances can you really say, wow, Dallas was fantastic that game? I think tonight was like the rare example. And so that's why I'm just kind of like, well, without Heiskanen, I don't necessarily see in them, just kind of going on like a true heater.
Yep.
Because I just don't think they're the same team. And I think when you see that step up in competition, again, we're going to be going back to this whole narrative.
Yeah. Aaliyah said no questions tonight, but it really felt good to see Otter play so well after some shakiness recently. Jordan Harper from Above the Border tells us, was it just me or was Otter the difference between losing and winning tonight? I mean, he was really good and he made some terrific saves. But the thing about Jake Oettinger is when he's on, he makes tough saves look routine. So I think Ben Bishop used to do that as well. Maybe it's a big goalie thing. Husky says Mikko was great tonight. Well, I'm happy Jake got the shutout. I really could have done without it, not for anything nefarious, but the guy I'm facing in my fantasy leagues playoffs has him, and it'll more likely lead to my elimination in the second round as the 1 seed. RIP Otters regime. That is the toughest thing about fantasy because you're playing against the guys you root for. Do you play fantasy, Mr. Analytics?
I do not,
Okay.
Which is, maybe kind of like an oversight on my part, I guess.
I think you'd be really good at it.
I don't think so at all. I think
you wouldn't be, you know what? You could ask my advice on some of these grinders that are really good that I tell you about and you laugh.
like Matt Rimpey.
I mean, no.
I was curious. No, you didn't.
Matt Rimpey was good.
I was testing you. I was curious if you were going to like bite. I'm glad you didn't, but nonetheless.
No. I mean, yeah. I think if Matt Rimpey stopped with the nonsense, I'd love to see his skill set. But
well, the funny thing is that if you look at the quote unquote fancy stats, those analytics that you rolled your eyes at me over,
yeah,
they're actually good. They're like Rimpey is actually really rates high. Of course, he's just like a bonehead, and that's the problem.
Got it. All right. Bubba Knocker. Hopefully this is a great get right game for Oettinger. Need him to pick up some of the slack for the decor, although they were pretty solid tonight. Brian Schofield, I saw Dallas signed a few of my Clarkson guys to ELCs for 25-26 season. Does that mean they can't play for Dallas or Texas, much more likely, until next season? Would love for them to come to Dallas this week with a big bag of cages. Brian, we happen to have the guy that can fill us in on these two newest Dallas Stars prospects, Mr. David Castillo.
I was pumped. I really was, because I mean, I was never necessarily worried, but that they kind of wouldn't sign him, but that it was always up to him, right? He's not under contract or anything like that. Now he is. The thing about Martino is, I've said before, said it on your show, right? That Martino kind of really reminds me of Maverick Bork, this kind of forecheck and playmaker, which maybe isn't the greatest compliment since Maverick Bork is a healthy scratch right now, but I think for the most part, kind of people can kind of understand. Again, don't forget he's a Hobie Baker finalist, right, for college hockey's most valuable player, and he was single-handedly what drove the Clarkson, into the ECAC finals. However, the cool thing is that they also signed Trey Taylor, who is top 4 left-handed defenseman for Clarkson as well, which is awesome. The Bible for all things prospect analysis, which is EP Rinkside, had Trey Taylor, who Dallas just signed, ranked 8th on their NCAA free agent, kind of prospect board. And I think that's fitting. Like, Taylor is a guy, of course, having to watch Martino a lot and haven't seen Clarkson a lot. Taylor, he's a defenseman that's really aggressive, likes to activate, likes to pinch. He's not necessarily the smoothest skater, but he is, he was really good for Clarkson. Again, like, Clarkson wasn't a team that was driven by this great system, which sadly you saw in their finals with Cornell, which was just an awful game. But, sometimes it's kind of what you get in college, and Cornell plays this kind of really lame duck conservative style. But Taylor, kind of one of the few sort of defenders that was really an impact player from the blue line. And I'm really curious how his game, really both their games, are going to translate, because they have like real skill. They're mature players, and it seems like the Texas Stars have really gotten the most out of players with profiles like that. So I'm super stoked that they signed both these guys.
Okay, so the second part of the question: can they play immediately? Entry-level contracts can play immediately, but there's a slide rule that allows teams to send them back without burning a year off their ELC if they play 9 or fewer games in the NHL season. What is an ELC? An ELC is a rookie contract for players under 25. Usually it's 1 to 3 years, and they're two-way contracts. So if a player plays 10 or more games in the NHL during the first year on an ELC, the contract starts counting down and the slide rule no longer applies. So I just thought that was some kind of information regarding the two players and what they can. I do remember when he took to the ice, I think he lost either in the finals or the Frozen Four, Cale Makar for UMass, and then immediately went to Colorado and scored a goal.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we don't have to worry about Dallas, looking to
yes,
Trey Taylor and Archie Martino but nonetheless, it's as I said with the prospect episode, Dallas, yeah, they have a completely depleted pool,
right,
and also the reinforcements aren't exactly on the way
right,
with how many picks they've traded. So that's why getting creative, going after, for example, like the college prospects is going to be really key. And of course, we've seen that in the past with players like Gavin Bayreuther, Luke Chris, who plays for Texas now, who's solid, shutdown defender. And I don't know why I'm Ritzkovian, duh.
Yeah, I played at Northeastern.
So yeah, I mean, that's I was really happy to see that, and that was believe it or not, the most positive Dallas Stars thing that happened for me tonight. Because again, I'm the lameoid that just wasn't really like excited about Dallas's win tonight.
No, that I mean, listen, I get it. They still need. I just think when I looked at the last few games and then I looked at tonight, I saw a difference. So,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, if I were to ask you what you saw in those games, chances are you're not necessarily going to be thinking about like, you know, a couple lines or several defense pairs. You're looking at like individuals. You're not necessarily looking at the team as a whole. Now, I'm making assumptions on my part. Maybe that's not how you felt, but like to me, it was like, well, Thomas Harley last game, right? I mean, when I think of like how Dallas beat Philly, I think of Thomas Harley. When I think about how they beat Minnesota, I think about Jake Oettinger. That is to their benefit, right? That's a good thing. That's an asset. Like you want to have individuals that can take over games, but not against this kind of competition. Like
yeah.
Philly in an injured Minnesota team, no.
Now, I'm not trying to scare Stars fans, but I am going to bring this up. After losing to Toronto on the road, Ottawa then went into Ottawa mad and beat the Sens 5-1, a playoff team. And then they beat in a
Wait,
shootout
you said Ottawa
Montreal.
beat the Sens? Sorry.
Did I say that? Colorado beat the Sens.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Colorado beat the Sens 5-1, and then Colorado beat Montreal on Hockey Night in Canada 5-4. And this is what I bring up. Here's the week ahead for Colorado or the upcoming games. Detroit at home. So Detroit goes to Colorado. The Kings at home. That's a tough one. St. Louis at home. Calgary at home. Then they have Chicago on the road. Columbus on the road. St. Louis on the road. But now toward the end of the season, David, Colorado to me, I don't. It's not the hardest schedule.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, there's the percentage, and we've known this for ever since Colorado kind of made their deadline additions and kind of, started to kind of make build momentum for themselves. We've kind of seen this, right? Which is that Dallas and Colorado are on a collision course. Yes, Dallas could take control of this narrative by somehow miraculously passing Winnipeg. But again, that's just not likely. So it's it'll be it sucks that playoff seeding is so terrible and
Yes.
ham-fisted that you have these elite teams. Again, look at the Atlantic with any of those teams having to play each other, whether it's like Toronto versus Florida, Toronto versus Tampa, Florida versus Tampa is awful. But I mean, the Central, right? The Central, Dallas potentially having to play Colorado. And then, like, in terms of record and goal differential, Winnipeg and Dallas being like top three teams, the fact that they have to play each other in round two is just absolutely
Right.
insane. Like, my brain scanners explodes.
Well, I mean, you are being rewarded, meaning Winnipeg and right now Vegas, for being the division winners because like Winnipeg, instead of playing Dallas and Colorado, Winnipeg, as of today, would play the St. Louis Blues. Vegas, instead of playing a very good Kings or Edmonton squad, play the Minnesota Wild. So in the West, at least, winning the division, and I guess you could say this for the Atlantic, because Florida, the Capitals will play the Canadians as of today, but that changes every day. And Florida plays the Ottawa Senators. The other matchups, Toronto, Tampa, which is very, very tough. The only one that probably benefits is Carolina gets New Jersey in the first round. New Jersey's just battling all kinds of injuries, trying to stay in that third position.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it's just kind of so pronounced, like for the Dallas Stars, which is the thing that we always we've been talking about for a while, which is that Dallas having to play a tough first round without Heiskanen could be the difference. Could be everything, right? And that's the most difficult thing. Now, having said that, I mean, it's not like, listen, like I would I be surprised if Colorado beat Dallas in a 7-game series without Heiskanen? No, not at all. However, Colorado has their own issues as well, and so even though like I wouldn't be surprised, I'm also not expecting it. So I know like I've been hypercritical about Dallas and kind of what I've seen from them, but sort of this is right. It's a clean slate once the playoffs start, and
Right.
and Colorado does still have Ryan Lindgren in their top 4, so they're going to have easy pickings there.
So if you subscribe to Star Stack, you get the Mikko Rantanen article with all kinds of analytics that David's going to post. He is also writer for D Magazine, so support D Magazine because Robert, David, and Sean write for D Magazine. So stick tap to D for doing that kind of Stars coverage. But really want you to subscribe to David's Substack if you get a chance at Star Stack. It's really a lot of information. In fact, Robert, Sean, and David bring a lot with their subscription-based models. So, David, as always, thank you so much, my friend. It's great to talk to you as always. The hockey nickname has been officially retired for you. So,
yeah, you know what? I already miss it. I already kind of miss it. I didn't want to dispirit you like that. It's
fine.
It's the hockey nicknaming convention that I really my ire is kind of drawn towards, but definitely not you, Gavin. Gavin, you're the only one that gets to call me that. I'll say that.
No. If you don't like it, I will tell you this. Growing up with a name like Spittle, if you don't like it, you don't have to. Like, I just got used to people calling me that name. So,
that's a fair point, because I also didn't like my last name growing up. Granted, part of this is like people always like screwing it up, like like turning me like Italian, like Costello, and
oh really?
And
I think you have an awesome last name.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I think Tiffin's a great last name. Shapiro's a good name. So
Tiffin is a great last name, man. It sounds like it absolutely sounds like the name of like one of these like Chads in these like young adult novels like that.
Oh, that's great. I will make sure he knows that tomorrow. Oh, all right, my friend. As always, thank you so much once again. And you're always great on these post-game shows. I love the back and forth, the joking around and stuff like that. So much appreciated, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. And don't forget, Stars fans, if you get a chance, you can review us on Apple. And one of the things I love is when people say like, oh, I love the guests that you have, like, David Castillo or Robert or Sean, or, support the cause, and really, really appreciate it. That's one way you can support Spits and Suds. The second way is if you know a fellow Stars fan, or if you're at the game and someone's talking, you're talking to them about hockey and they're sitting below you or above you, just mention Spits and Suds. That would be super cool, because we're looking to grow this program. I love doing like all these podcasts. It's wonderful, but it would be great to get the numbers up per program. So that's just a little insight. We are growing at a terrific, exciting rate. So if you could expand that audience, that would be absolutely wonderful. So if you know a hockey fan in your life, just spread the word and just say, hey, have you ever listened to Spits and Suds? And the best way, show them on the phone. They can take a screenshot or whatever, and that way they will remember it. So for David Castillo, I'm Gavin Spittle. Don't forget, exciting program tomorrow. We'll have Robert Tiffin on. That'll come out probably around the 3 or 4 o'clock hour tomorrow, and then right back at it on Wednesday as the Stars take on Edmonton in Canada. Until then, have a great night, everyone.